And they gave us James McRory and Paul McStay. They gave us Johnston, Tully, Murdoch, Gold and Hay. And most of the football greats have passed through Parkhead's gates. But to play football the Glasgow Celtic way. And they played football the Glasgow Celtic way.
Hello and welcome to the Celtic Ray podcast. I am Stephen Ray. I am your host, and again joined this week with Kevin McColgan. Kev, how you doing?
Good, aye, in a much better mood this week than I was this time last week.
I think that's the same with everybody, to be honest, isn't it? It's amazing what a couple of good results does.
It's amazing what a difference a week can make. Some people say what a difference a year can make. It's a difference a week can make for me just now.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we'll get into both games and any other stuff that's kicking about. But we mentioned last week that, you know, as much as there's been a lot of noise around the manager and what's going on in the background and are the players happy and all that sort of stuff, we pretty much said if Celtic can get a draw, or at least a draw, and then beat Aberdeen, you know, all that noise will disappear very quickly, you know, and lo and behold, that's exactly what's happened.
I mean, it certainly has done that, and is the way I was seeing it, I was like, wasn't really up for the game on Thursday. I thought it wasn't going to be the greatest of games, and then I was totally proven wrong. And as I say, it was a good performance, and obviously we'll analyse it a bit more. But yeah, I mean, really, it's not so much of what are we doing now. It's a wee bit more upbeat, optimistic, and looking forward and going to the next game, which is in 2 days' time.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, to be fair to Lennon, he did say, you know, he's had players out with the COVID thing and he's missing players through injury, and I get all that. You know, I still stick by what I said, and this is more a long-term thinking thing than a reactive. I felt after the Ferencváros game that if I was in charge, I would have pulled the trigger. But obviously, I'm not in charge of a big £100 million turnover football club, so that's not my decision to make. But I wouldn't say we've ever been against, never been one of these people not supporting the manager, because, you know, bad results will mean the manager gets sacked. But I don't want Celtic to have bad results, you know. So I want the manager to succeed, you know. So I think there's been a lot of noise over the last few weeks, and I think some of it's been justified. I think the performance against Rangers was a massive alarm bell, you know, for a lot of folk. I think to play as poor as we did in that game, and then to follow up with, you know, pretty much the similar performance in the first half against AC Milan, you're like, what the fuck is going on? But fair play to him, he's switched the systems. You know, he's now got, you know, square pegs and square holes, and, you know, you play the players in the right position, and generally you start getting performances, and that's kind of what we've had in the last two games. So we'll start with the game that kicked off last Thursday, 6 o'clock against Lille. Like you said, most people kind of went into that game. There was a lot of chat around, you know, Lille's not important, you know, it doesn't matter and all that sort of stuff. I've never ever believed that, and I don't believe it. I think it's a very small-minded mentality to sort of disregard Europe and only concentrate on Scottish football. So I predicted a 2 each. I'd have preferred it if it was the other way about, where we went 2 down and came back to get a 2 each, you know. But I had mixed feelings after the game. It was a bit of pride, but a wee bit of frustration at the same time. What about yourself?
Yeah, I would be echoing that. But if it's to be the case that this is a springboard to better things with the season, then I'm going to jump bite it and take it with both hands. I would say, though, that you have to also take into account that Lille are a good side, and they certainly showed that in the second half. So I think just to be 2-0 up, and even just to get away with a draw, is not the worst thing in the world. So I'm happy with it. I'm happy with it.
I don't think it was a case of getting away with a draw, because we had chances. Moi Ely had another couple of chances, one in particular that he should have made it 3-1. And then at 2 each, we looked dangerous, really dangerous on the break. And I think Frimpong kind of took a wrong decision by taking the shot on when he had players round about him. So, I don't think Bain was really troubled that much. I think defensively we were pretty solid. But, a couple of mistakes. But we'll go through the goals, obviously. It started pretty even game. Lille had quite a lot of the possession. Celtic were happy to let them have that possession up to a point, and then we sort of closed ranks on them and then try to hit them in the break, and we looked dangerous. But the first goal is just... before we actually get the first goal, we had the chance where I think Moi Ely pulls it back for a Yeti and he blazed it out of the bar. He should have buried that. He
should have buried it, and going by Yeti's recent stats and goal scoring, you would have thought that he would have, but at the same time it was a bit of a tight angle to get a shot away, albeit he did blazing it over the bar. But the first goal, it's a great wee touch by Yeti to set up Ely and to give that space.
They fannied a bit between their sort of centre back and full back, and as soon as the ball looked as if it was slightly loose, Elyounoussi's absolutely pounced on it, and then Yeti has done that, like you say, that wee neat back heel, and then we were sort of 2-on-1, but the defender sort of was quite clever in the angle he made, that he was going to make it difficult to sort of find Ncham with a really good pass.
Yeah.
And when Elyounoussi took the shot on, I wasn't quite sure. I thought it was going wide, and then all of a sudden I think because the keeper didn't dive, just initially you're thinking that's going wide and it's hit the side net, and it's just an unbelievable finish.
It's a fantastic strike. There's no getting away from it, but I was screaming at the telly to give it to Ncham because I thought he was the better option to try and keep it going so as not to waste the opportunity. But what a strike. Absolutely fantastic. You really couldn't have got a better goal that night, I don't think, out of the whole of the groups.
It
really did set the standard, and it was a great start to the match. And then, the next goal was, I would say the next goal that he scored was a harder finish.
Definitely.
The way that he had to take it, and just get it into that corner. But great play by Frimpong with that second goal.
Well, if you watch the movement when we're attacking for the second goal, Yeti actually he runs sort of towards the 6-yard box and he takes 3 of the defenders with him. And Elyounoussi such a clever player. He spots that, and you actually see him sort of stopping his run, pulling back a wee bit, and then he sort of points to Frimpong as if to say, put it right here. Mm-hmm. And fair play to Frimpong, whose crossing hasn't been the best. His final ball is a bit, erratic at times. He's put it just slightly behind him, but I think that's helped to get that finish, because he's actually had to sort of wrap his foot right round it, which is, it felt like a bit of a trundler, and you kind of feel as if you'd be disappointed if your own goalkeeper let that in. But that doesn't take away from the fact it's a brilliant finish, considering the angle he's at and how he's took it in the run and the movement. I was watching the highlights kind of show after it. I think it was Glenn Hoddle was on it, and he was just waxing lyrical about Elyounoussi movement and the first goal, and how he took the second goal. And Glenn Hoddle was a player in his time, so he should know about classy finishes, and it was another classy finish, to be fair. And I think that's us starting to really get to see Elyounoussi, the real Moi Ely, the player that we've seen, early part of last season, and especially in that semi-final against Hibs, where he was just unplayable. I think he's
finding his feet. He is definitely finding his feet.
But he's definitely that position, that sort of left-hand side of a 3, but he's really right-footed, so, he likes to come in inside, and I think that role just really suits him. I thought for a while that he could play as a 10 or in behind the striker, but I think in the 3-5-2 it just didn't suit him at all. And I just think he's really comfortable coming off the left-hand side.
I think you could tell, though, that him and Yeti have played before, though, because they were working very well for the majority of the half, as well as just parts of the second half. The link-up play was good. They were always looking for each other. The passing was good link-up play, good communication. I would be good to see that
certain
more.
Partnerships seem to have sort of some telepathy type, where they just know where the other guy is at all times, and that they two just look as if they've got that natural sort of partnership, like you said.
Mm-hmm. but I mean, I think you need to praise Laxalt for what I would believe to be a man of the match performance. You know, it was absolutely fantastic.
We'll get to him. We'll get to him because, actually in the lead up to the first goal, he does some fucking Cobra Kai type, flying kick to stop the guy sort of breaking down the wing, where he's actually won that pass, and that's what led to the first goal. He's, but we'll speak more about Laxalt, but it's pretty much everything that you and Marshall had said in the podcast I had on a few weeks ago about Laxalt and the type of player he is. I kind of knew what type of player he was, and I remember him being that for Uruguay in the World Cup, that he was just a fullback that strikers or wingers really struggle to get past. When you look at him, he's when you see him with the specs and the braids, I think he was described as he looked like a 16-year-old lassie had been on holiday to Benidorm, but he's a wolf in sheep's clothing, I think is the... He
definitely is. I mean, as you say, we'll get on to him, but I mean, we must mention him a lot during this podcast.
I think he's slowly... I looked up an old tweet I'd put out again about him a couple of years back, and I'd said at the time we should take half the KT money. We'd obviously just sold KT, it was actually last year, and just give half it to Milan for Laxalt. And I read some of the responses after it, kind of basically people saying, why the fuck would he come to Scotland and all that kind of chat. And it's, well, he's here now, and I just think, I think he's helping El Yunusi a lot, because he's such a forward-thinking player, but defensively he's switched on big time. Very little gets past him at all. In the last couple of games anyway. I just think we've got the makings of an unbelievable sort of left-hand side if we can keep both of these guys fit.
Definitely. I mean, it will be interesting to see how he gets on from there. I do hope he could be a potential for maybe a permanent transfer, given on what we've already seen.
I've seen him speaking to Beaton, and I've seen him speaking to Frimpong, so I'm just wondering if those two have got a bit of Spanish, or there's a mutual language in there somewhere, because they're the two I've seen him actually having a conversation with. So it's good that he's got a couple of guys that he's able to turn to, I suppose. It can't be easy coming, because he's got a wife and a young kid, and I don't think they're over here. And it must be hard to come into a country where he doesn't speak the language, and even the locals don't speak the language either. Even we don't really speak English. We've got a version of it. So I just think you must have a really strong mentality, to be able to do that. So all good. I may sort of pick up. Obviously, we come to a penalty that we should never have been. It was a bit of a stupid challenge by Duffy, and he's kind of made the referee make a judgment call. I think it was weird, and I'm surprised the ref didn't pick up on it, as the ball actually took a bounce, and it bounced on the line before it actually went in the box. Mm-hmm. And I just found it mental that he managed to give a penalty for that decision. And even you actually seen him looking over at the linesman. And it wasn't until the linesman obviously must have gave him the signal that it was inside the box. But that could have absolutely killed us, because we've had the momentum. We're 2-0 up. We're looking pretty comfortable. And then all of a sudden, they've got a penalty and we're just on the verge of half-time. So what was your thoughts? That's definitely something that only ever happens to Celtic in Europe, isn't it?
Of course. Absolute in dreamland with a great 2-0 cushion, because you never normally get a 2-goal cushion with Celtic. It's only one, and you're hoping for the best just to hold on. I do think the penalty was never a penalty. I do think though that he was conned by Duffy's silly decision making. But you've got to say, it was a crack save by Bain with his leg or foot.
Well, he's dived to the left, and he's obviously realised that the guy's kind of went down the middle, and he's managed to lift his leg up to kick it away. So it was kind of justification, but we should never have been in that position in the first place, I don't think. No,
and I certainly would agree with you. But yeah, I think you've got to also give Bain some credit there, and it was a great save against Jonathan David. if that's his name, and a man they've spent £30 million on and he still hasn't scored, you know.
Aye.
I mean, that's quite a remarkable stat. You know, you think for 30 million you're hoping for goals at least.
Yeah.
Minimum.
But not long after that, Bain almost reverses that good save with shouting. You can actually hear his shout. The cross comes in to the edge of the box and he comes running out and just gift wraps it for the centre back. Luckily, it fell to the centre back because he's just dropped it right to his feet at the edge of the box and the guy's cracked it off the bar. So, what's your thoughts on Bain? Obviously, Barkas, he was injured and he wasn't even on the bench for that Aberdeen away game, and then he's on the bench for the Lille game. What was your thoughts? Was it a case of Bain never done a hell of a lot wrong, he keeps the jersey, or was it you think it was Barkas isn't overly 100% but fit enough to be on the bench?
I think it's more of a case of, well, Bain didn't really do too much, and given Barkas's recent struggles, if people want to call them that, it was playing it safe. I do think though that you will see Barkas getting involved a lot more, because I think for £5 million we're going to have to be playing him when you're given that outlay. I do think I'm not the biggest fan of Bain, I must admit that. I do think some of his performances, especially against Cluj in the qualifiers last year, were a bit.
Well, we even seen it in the Hamilton game, the first game of the season. Yeah. He let one in that he should have saved. Yeah,
and I think there was certainly a couple of occasions where like he should have caught that ball in the first half. Like any well, it's bad to say normal, but any keeper with concentrating should be able to catch that with relative ease. But I do think he hasn't done anything terribly, and he made a couple of good saves and did catch a couple of things. To be fair.
The two saves he made in the first half, the one was it was a really hard shot, but it was right at him. And then the free kick he saved, it was kind of down his throat, but he's kind of went for the Hollywood kind of reaction save, punching it away with his right when he probably should have tipped it over with his left. I don't know. I can't
remember whether that was where I saw it or that was Aberdeen, but then the more I see it, it was definitely the game on Thursday. And that was it's things like that make me think that he isn't confident in himself, whereas he should just be catching it instead of just giving it the punch away or he's not confident in certain aspects, but he's confident in other aspects. I think
he strikes me as, to use the brilliant Glasgow word, he strikes me as somebody that's quite gallus, if you know what I mean. He's quite maybe quite cocky within himself a wee bit. He's kind of get that look about him, but I just don't trust him as a first choice goalkeeper. And I've seen some of the nonsense I've seen written on Twitter and heard on the radio and all the other media places that Lennon doesn't trust Barkas and that's why Bain's in and Bain's a number one and Bain's a better keeper, and I'm like, I don't see it. I really don't see it. I'll ask you this question: all the goals that you've seen Celtic concede this season, as in the goals that Barkas conceded, what ones do you think you should have done a lot better there? Just off the top of your head.
Well, I think the Rangers one, definitely.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I'm trying to think now. Maybe the second Rangers one. I think maybe sometime. That could.
You think so?
He's
right in the middle of the goals, and the ball's kind of trapped under Duffy's legs, and Goldson's toe poked it in at the bottom corner.
I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. That would be one.
I don't think he had any chance for that one.
I think
the two others that come to mind that people are trying to put on him was the second goal for Ferencváros, and
that's not his fault. That's definitely not his fault.
Well, other people will argue that he should have done a lot better with that, but for me, that's all on El Hamid. That one. The other one that people were trying to blame him for was the second Livingston one, where the guys cracked it for 30 yards, right into the top corner. For me, that's never his fault. That's just a worthy.
I think the only one that I could really think so with 100% conviction, knowing it, is the first Rangers goal. That's the only one. And people will say the one against AC Milan, the first goal as well. I can't really see it being that way. That's more. That's more.
Aye. And the point I'm trying to get at here is, since before lockdown, he had 4 clean sheets in a row. We had 2 away performances in Europe. He kept a clean sheet. We had the clean sheet against Hibs, and I think he had a clean sheet. I'm trying to think who else he had a clean sheet against. I'm sure he had 4 in a row. I'm positive it was, but he never really done much wrong. I think he's conceded a few penalties, but the penalties that he's been up against have been bang right in the corner. Pretty hard to get anywhere near. So the 2 games before he dropped it was the Rangers game, where he probably should have saved 1 out of the 2, and the Milan game, where I don't think he had a chance with any of them, to be fair.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 5 goals conceded. So then Bain goes in goals. In the first 2 games he plays, he concedes 5 goals.
Mm-hmm.
3 to Aberdeen, 2 of them penalties, 1 he doesn't die for. The second one was the one that hit him in the chest and it bounces out and the guy knocks it in. For me, the first goal that Lille score, and I know people are going to disagree with this, but for me, I think he's got to save that. It's went right through his arms. I know it's a close range shot, it's a hard shot. It's the fault for the shot is on Christie, because he's completely lost the guy. Celtic, is it? Was it Celtic that scored?
Celtic.
Yeah, I mean, Christie's ball watching, he's dreaming the guys. So the fault is on Christie for me, but Bain, I think, has to do a lot better. He's right at his near post. It's hard hit at him, but it's actually went through his arm, between his arm and his body, and fell in. And I look at that goal and I think, if Barkas drops that one in the edge of the box where they hit the bar, and then he concedes that goal, he is getting absolutely slaughtered.
Aye.
I don't care what anybody says. People would turn around and say a £5 million goalkeeper should be saving that. The second goal for Lille, which comes not long after, it's pretty similar actually in the way it came in the Rangers game. That ball across.
Aye.
Where there's the difference being is one guy mishits his shot, and instead of being stuck under one of the player's legs, it's kind of went to another guy. And even at that, he's mishit his shot and it's deflected in off Duffy. So Bain's got absolutely zero chance with that second goal. But the first one, I don't care what anybody says. For me, if you watch it, there's an angle you watch it. I think it's kind of behind the net, but at the opposite side.
Mm-hmm.
It goes right through his arm, and I'm thinking he should be saving that. Or at least pushing it back out. It's been right through his body, and I was really disappointed, to be honest, because the 2 goals that we'll get happen not long after we lose Ayer, and I think that was a massive, massive moment in the game. Ayer getting it, because we were pretty comfortable to that point.
Yeah, it was a turning point essentially, and I was surprised to see the reaction on Twitter to the first goal, because everybody's saying, "Oh, what about Christie?" Which is true. Christie did what should have picked up the man. Maybe we should never have been in that position. But I mean, that is a basic goalkeeping mistake, and he should have done better with it. But I
suppose there's 3 mistakes. The first mistake is we lose the first header. The second mistake is Christie is completely oblivious to the guy who's running behind him, and then obviously the third mistake for me is Bain should save it. I think the next mistake is on the manager. Now I think he done a lot right on the night, Neil Lennon, in regards to his team selection, in regards to the way the team was set up, the way the sort of the game plan to sort of suck it up and then hit them on the break really quickly. I think they got really worried about us on the break. But at that moment where they're really sort of building up the pressure and they get that first goal, and then straight after the first goal, we've got that chance, which pretty much straight for kick-off, and it was brilliant play with El Yunusi and then Edward who slipped him in. Why does he no shoot?
I really don't know why, because he would have had the confidence to go for it, given he's already got 2 goals in the game. And
it was almost as if he remembered back to the first goal and thought, and Cham might have been in a better position, but I'm going to take the shot on. I think he looked up and thought somebody else might have been in a better position, and he's just took that one touch too much. And I think he didn't really know what he kind of got caught between wanting to pass and actually wanting to shoot, and then ended up just running too far with it. That was a killer moment.
It was a kill, but I mean, what can we do about it? And maybe if that went in, and then who knows? I don't think they would have got 3 goals back. That would have killed them, I think. if we get that third goal. But I feel though the Ayer moment was certainly a turning point, and then from there on it was just constant wave after wave after wave of attack. Not saying it was getting to any great stage of whereby they were pouncing on, but I mean the ball was just, we were constantly losing the ball. The passing was slack. It was just a case of hit it and punt it away. Whereas the first half were a wee bit more controlled. We knew we were there. There was passes going. It was slick. It was slack. That just seemed to go all out the window in the second half, and that's the frustrating part.
It was a mixture of tiredness and just they'd put on a few fresh legs and a few sort of good players. And when we conceded the second goal, I tweeted it. I'm like, make the fucking changes, because it was clear and obvious to me that we'd completely lost the midfield. Mm-hmm. They were getting in behind us. They weren't getting much past Laxalt, but they were definitely getting in behind on Frimpong's side. They were running at the defence. They were starting to carve us open. Mm-hmm. As soon as it goes 2 each, Lennon makes 3 substitutions, and because obviously you've got to do the number things with the board, and you've only got one board, it completely slows everything down to get 3 players changed at one time. And I think that completely changed the game back towards us. We absolutely killed their momentum. Their momentum went
as well. And as you say, there was certainly half chances whereby we could have maybe nicked it.
It wasn't a case of Lille could have went on and won 3 or 4-2. It was definitely a 50-50 game at that point when we make the changes. And I think that's the frustrating part is Lennon, as much as he looks as if he's starting to turn it around, he still leaves it too long sometimes. Even on Sunday, we'll get to Sunday, but I think even on Sunday when Aberdeen got ahead of steam, he left his changes a wee bit later than I would have liked to sort of try and get the game back.
It's a Lennon favourite though, isn't it?
I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's certain managers just have, I've picked my first 11. The 11 I think are the best players, and I'm going to give them as long as I can to make it right. I just think sometimes, the team that you finish with could be just as important as the team that you start with.
Of course.
I think that's a phrase in an American sport, that, they don't, the team that starts the game isn't necessarily the best team, but it's the team that finishes could be the difference between winning and losing. I think
there's cases that could be made for, reaction and impact players.
Yeah.
So it's always been a Lennon thing, even in his first spell, that he had these just wait, and then he changes. But he seems to wait until it then changes. It's always waiting for that moment, that impact of just where it implodes, and then we change it.
Well, it happened in the game against Ferencváros where it waited till we went 2-1 down before he started making the changes, as opposed to making the changes when we're in the ascendancy at 1 each.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating, and it's the one thing I can label him over this last couple of games. But the game finishes 2-2. Mm-hmm. I think deep down, I think we're all relatively happy. Disappointed that we didn't win the game, but it's kept us alive in the group. We've got the head-to-head with Sparta Prague coming up, who have lost their 2 games. They've not played for about a month in their league. Their league's seen as leisure, and they've not been allowed to play for the last 4 or 5 weeks. The only games that they're getting just now is in the Europa League, but they've obviously lost 2. So I think for us, if we have any aspirations of getting through, we probably need Milan to take the 6 points.
Yeah.
And we probably need to take at least 4 out of the next 2 games.
I would like to think, going by what you said, then we should be at least be aiming for the 6, but 4 at the minimum.
Yeah. Well, what I would say is we need to win the game on Thursday. Yeah. I think for me that's an absolute must. I think going to Prague, having to win would be a pretty tough ask. I think if we can get back on level points with Lille on Thursday night, hoping that Milan win. This is on the precision that Milan win, but because Lille still haven't lost the game yet, but Milan look pretty strong this season. So I think as long as we go into the last game of the group knowing that a win over Lille puts us through, I think that's all we can ask for at this stage.
Essentially, we need to do our job. We win first, then we worry about the game. So get the victory, which I think we should get at home, and then take it from there. I do think though that Milan are a very strong team, possibly stronger than Lille. Lille do have a good team. Whether they keep up this momentum of being top and or round the top of League One remains to be seen.
Well, you want to be going to the San Siro with Milan already qualified.
Yeah.
Because to see Celtic potentially win a game in the San Siro would be amazing for me.
And an empty San Siro. I think Milan would like to get that group done and dusted with quickly and concentrate on Serie A if they could.
Yeah, especially with what you say, especially with the Serie A, and they're going for it big time this season. They've got a pretty good and young side, so.
They will. I think most Italian teams would like to just get groups over and done with if they could, and just I can see them beating Lille comprehensively over the two games if I'm being optimistic about it.
So moving on to the game on Sunday, where obviously on Saturday Hearts defeated Hibs after extra time and went into the final. So there's a potential for the showdown with Celtic and Craig Gordon. So Craig Gordon made a few good saves against Hibs, and all of a sudden people in the usual media outlets were basically saying, Celtic should never get rid of Craig Gordon. And then somebody on Twitter put up a thread of Craig Gordon in Europe for Celtic.
And that was a fantastic thread too. I can't remember his name, whoever did it. It was great. Because one of my friends is Craig. He's an avid supporter of Craig Gordon. And it could be something to do with his name's Craig and he's also a goalkeeper. It could be something to do with that. But we showed him that, and I think he's been ever so quiet about the Craig Gordon situation. So
I think what we can say about Craig Gordon is he's a guy who looked as if he was done and dusted at the age of 32. We got him, after he'd been training at Rangers for a wee while. We got him for a free after selling Fraser Foster. I think Craig Gordon was a very good goalkeeper for Celtic. But anybody try to, rewrite history on Craig Gordon being this guy who, was mistake-less is absolutely kidding himself. So if you've not seen the thread, the first goal that he fucks up on is the one away to Fenerbahce, where he comes running out and actually ran past the ball. And the guy puts it in for a cute angle. Then the next one is, I think it was Salzburg, where
he throws it to the guy.
He throws it out and he throws it right to the guy's feet, and the guy just taps it in.
My personal favourite is Inter Milan.
He actually had two against Inter Milan, where he saved Shaqiri's shot that was actually going wide and knocked it right back to him, and Shaqiri buried it. But the second one is the one where the ball was played up through to Rodrigo Palacio, and he comes.
It's the athletic dive to it.
He runs it and catches it and manages to fucking let go of it, and Palacio's like, "Oh, cheers!" Just taps it in. There's the one against Bayern, where Boyata, to be fair, was at fault initially, where he left it, and I think it's Kingsley Coman that runs through. But Gordon does his mad run out where he tries to take him out and completely misses the ball and the player, and then starts screaming for handball, and then they score that one. Then there's the two that, similar to what people are trying to blame Barkas for, but these ones are actually worse. The one against Gladbach, where Toure tries to usher it out, the guy gets in behind him, knocks it back, and the Gladbach player scores for fucking the acutest angle right through Gordon's legs.
He does hit it with some force through his legs. I do remember that. Then
there's the one where the guy runs past Lustig for Astana, away at Astana, and then beats Craig Gordon on his near post. How he got it through that near post, I'll never know. So there was a whole multitude of these massive mistakes that Craig Gordon made, mostly in Europe, to be fair. I think the only one for the Scottish League that was put in there was the one where he completely wiped out the guy for Alloa.
That game, he nearly killed him.
But he did it to somebody else, did he not? He got away with a couple of them. But, I mean, I know we're having a bit of a pop at Craig Gordon. I think we're just trying to highlight that it's not an anti-Craig Gordon thing. I think Craig Gordon was a very good goalkeeper for Celtic and saved Celtic on a number of occasions. But he wasn't flawless. He did have a mistake in him.
There's
And anybody try to rewrite history by basically saying we should have kept Craig Gordon because Barkas is shite. And I think that's what I'm just trying to get to is Barkas has been at the club for 15 games effectively.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's a Greek guy moving into a team that seems to be in a bit of a sticky spell, not been playing well, players are injured, players out with COVID, a defence that's looked pretty shaky for the start of the season. You know, the guy I don't think has made that many mistakes, one or two that he maybe could have done a lot better with. But
the guy's still learning. We need to give him, not so much still learning. He's still getting to grips with the game, getting to grips with the squad, and getting to grips with whatever back four or back three is presented to him on any given year.
I've had a guy tweet me basically saying, he's been having a go saying, see, Bain's back in, Barkas is dragged, he's fucking shite, get rid of him, 5 million wasted. And I'm like, if you were in charge, you would have get rid of John Hartson. Because he signed in August and didn't score his first goal until December. I think he played like 20 odd games before he got his first goal for Celtic. It
was a hat trick. His first goal was a hat trick against Dundee United.
But I know it's gone back a long way, and it's me just randomly choosing a situation to suit my argument. But I think the argument I'm trying to make is, got to give the guy a chance. Wait till he's in goals in front of a steady defence. That's sort of putting 4 and 5 games together, and I think he looks a decent keeper, but he's not really had a lot of shots to face. And it doesn't help when the only shots he's getting to face is a free header 6 or 7 yards out, or a guy running clean on through on goal, and it's just the keeper to beat kind of thing. So I think the guy needs time. I think he will come good. I think people are very harsh in this country. If Laxalt didn't hit the ground running, I guarantee he'd have been getting it. It would have been a case of get Taylor in. And I already read somebody saying we should never get rid of Johnny Hayes. And I responded to him by basically saying, instead of who, keep Johnny Hayes in place of who? And he came back to me and said Greg Taylor. And I said, so he's on the bench.
Because it would be learning about subs to make. It was always Johnny Hayes.
Somebody else said to me about, I was having a wee pop at Johnny Hayes. I thought he was a very average football player who had a couple of decent moments at Celtic. And somebody replied to me basically saying Johnny Hayes was full of drive, he good at passing, gets the ball forward, scores goals, makes assists. So I looked into his assists and goals for Celtic. He had 4 assists and 2 goals in 3 years. So, a wee bit of rewriting of history. I think he was he was a player that tried very hard, but, Celtic should be aspiring to getting the best player we possibly can afford. And Craig Gordon, his time is up for me. Mm-hmm. And Johnny Hayes was never good enough in the first place for me. So, but we kind of went away off on a tangent, but it was just because Craig Gordon had a good game on Saturday.
Just to add to that before we do go on, I think people expect that just because we had a good left back or a good goalkeeper or a good striker that they expect the next person to come just to be exactly the same. It's just not like that. They need time. They need just time to adjust. But people are very, very cynical, and we need to give them time in order to adjust to whatever they've not been used to. So it's, as you say, constant rewriting of history.
I don't like it. I think Bain. See if the Celtic goalkeeper gets injured in a match and it's like, we need to bring on Scott Bain. I'm fine with that. I think Bain is a very competent goalkeeper, but I don't think he's a player that has the mentality to be a number one at Celtic. I just don't. I think when he looked as if he was going to be number one, he started making mistakes. He started not making saves, because obviously he got thrown in against Rangers in that game, and had a very good game, and obviously saved us right at the death. But I don't think he's a number one, and I think he knows he's not a number one at Celtic either. I think he'll always sort of endeavour to do his best and whatever, and try his best. But I don't see it. I don't think he's at the level of what their rivals have got. I don't think he's as good as McGregor or even their backup goalkeeper. So that's just my opinion, and I think Celtic.
I think I would echo that, but it's not what I perceive to be what we should be looking for. We should always be looking to just be better than an ex-Dundee goalkeeper.
But to be fair to the critics of Barkas, I can agree with him to say the jury is out, but to bin the guy or to basically say it's a waste of money at this stage, I think is far, far too early. The guy's only 25, 26. He's effectively still got 13 years as a goalkeeper in him, really. Most goalkeepers are getting into late 30s, so he's not even close to his peak years, to be honest. So I think the $5 million will be well spent, but I think the guy needs time to settle in and settle into a team that's actually playing pretty well. So speaking of playing pretty well, we move on to Sunday. Were you ever in any doubts about the game?
I wouldn't say in any doubt. I did think it going on the basis of what happened in the week previously. I was thinking, this could be a tough game, and potentially, if we're looking on the basis of the same scoreline, then possibly extra time. But Thursday's result and the performance gave me hope and optimism going into the game. And I must admit, when apart from like a couple of chances within the first 5 minutes for Aberdeen, where Kennedy got the better of Frimpong on that left hand side of the right hand side.
That was a worry.
Then I thought we were an easy street, to be honest. We were looking good going forward. Good communication, good passing, movement. Everything was kind of clicking for a change, and it was good to see in the first half. And
I think that's where Al Hamid has got something over Frimpong. I think defensively he's a lot better. I think he's maybe a harder player to get. I don't think we concede those crosses with El Hamid at right back. Frimpong is definitely also a lot quicker and sharper in the final third, but El Hamid has shown in the St Johnstone game that he's well capable of putting a ball right on a sixpence, you know what I mean, for a goal. So I'd like, as much as Frimpong looks an exciting player, I think he's still got a long way to go, and I don't think he's ready yet for sort of 10, 15, 20 games in a row kind of thing. I know he's had to recently because of injuries and illness and whatever, but I think he's the kind of player that you bring in for a few and then leave out for a few, and I think him and El Hamid will share this season depending on the opponent, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be a fair assumption, but even then, it's great to see Frimpong when he gets that wee bit of confidence to go past the player. He's in full flow.
Yeah.
And it is really good to see, because you don't get that with El Hamid. It is more just a defensive right back, just a typical traditional right back.
And I think that they crosses that come in, and I think that's where my issue with Bain is, because I don't think Bain's the biggest of goalkeepers. He's no. I mean, you put him next to somebody like Fraser Foster. You put most people next to Fraser Foster, to be fair, because I've stood next to him once before. The guy's an absolute man mountain. I think Bain doesn't intimidate guys like Cosgrove or anyone, any of these sort of big, bubbly, heavy strikers. I think that's where Barkas needs to sort of, bulk up a wee bit as well. He does look, he doesn't look he looks tall and assured with his hands and stuff, but he doesn't look, as if he'll wipe out a striker to catch a ball type thing. So obviously Aberdeen had started throwing crosses in, obviously knowing that Celtic looked a bit fragile with crosses recently, and they got some joy early doors. That was the only time I was kind of, we're kind of in a game here, so to speak. But it wasn't long after that we had that brilliant move between Rogic and Christie and Edward. Edward should bury that, really, shouldn't he? That chance.
That's a big double chance, really, when you look at it. And I think Edward in full fitness and full flow, that's in the back of the net. But even then, it's not one of the harder chances that he's had. And I think given that he buries that 9 times out of 10, he could have done a lot better. But I think that was a sign of things to come, and I was glad they were at least making attempts like that early on. So that gave me further confidence that I thought we were going to get somewhere. And then Rogic again involved in everything, and it's great to see him the way he is, getting involved in things.
I think we need to take some credit. I think we said many weeks ago, when the talk of Tom Rogic being sold, we suggested that Tom Rogic was still the best number 10 at Celtic, and I still believe that. I think his movement and the way he plays just offers so much. He's just, he always plays in that half turn, and I think that split second just makes such a difference, really. And when it comes to creating chances, and Aberdeen are absolutely terrified of him. He's done it so many times against them. They just do not know how to handle him, because it's pretty much the same centre halves that he's been up against for the last 3-4 years.
Yeah, I mean, and you think after all this time they think they'd have a plan to stop him. I think sometimes the plan to stop him is just to kick him up and down the park. But I mean, working on that half turn, it is his trait, its quality. I mean, as I say many times in this podcast, he can find space in a telephone box. You
just switch a lawnmower on there.
No, it's every time it's this laptop. It keeps overheating for whatever reason. It's on a table. I don't know what it's doing. But no, it's not the lawnmower. There is someone out cutting grass or doing something, the next door neighbour or something at this time of night for whatever reason. But no, it is just my laptop, so don't worry, it's not going to flash.
I imagine see you try to put it out with an extinguisher smell, try to do the fucking pod.
No, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. As I say, I mean, he could find space in a telephone box. Rogic, he is great at it, and he just to find the space that he always isn't. That pass that he has in him, that assist for, he's assisted in 2 games against Aberdeen now, and let's hope he can springboard from there. And what a pass to Christie for, what a strike it was.
He just laid it on a plate. But just before we move on to Christie's goal, Rogic, see when he's at it, I think he's just such a brilliant football player, and it's just a shame that he suffers so many injuries, and he's, when people go on about, he can't finish a game, there's a guy who I followed for years, not only when he played in Europe, but also in Argentina, and Roman Riquelme. I'm not putting Rogic at the same level as Riquelme, because Riquelme was an absolute phenomenal football player.
Fantastic.
Aye. I mean, if you ever watched the 2006 World Cup Argentina side, the guy was on another level that season, because that was the season they got Villarreal to the semi-final, and it was actually him that cost Villarreal going through. They should have equalised with a last-minute penalty, and they fucking missed it against Arsenal. But yeah, he kind of reminds me so much of him, always playing in half-turn, just that ability to always keep the ball away for the opposition player, to create chances. He's just a fantastic football player, and I think Rogic just makes such a difference to this team. I think he just creates so much space for Elyounoussi, and as it stands on the right hand side, Christie, and I think that suits our team, the way we play, with a left footer on the right and a right footer on the left, and being able to come inside and almost box off that midfield, and then allow the fullbacks, two flying fullbacks to get right up beside them. I think it's going to be pretty hard if Celtic can get up to full speed and get everyone fully fit. I think I've always felt that we've had a really good side, and the makings of a really good side, but I think if we can keep everyone fit and keep Rogic in that position, I think Celtic could really go and do some damage. But speaking of damage, he lays up Christie, and I actually was sitting on the couch watching it, and when Christie lines up to take the shot, I actually turned around to my boy and said, well, I didn't turn around, I just said, don't even think about it, because I just remember all these shots he had against Dundee United, and the keeper kept saving them, or it was going to the bar or around the post, but by the time I'd even got the word think out my mouth, he's cracked it right in the top corner. It was almost identical to the goal that Forrest had scored last season against Aberdeen in the semi-final.
Well, we had to contend with a new camera angle at hand, which I just didn't like. It was a bit off-putting for me. I'm so used to having it with the main stand camera. But I mean, from the angle that we got and the angle that they showed you from where the commentators were, it was an absolutely fantastic strike. For once, he did acknowledge this in his interview, that he said it's been good to see a shot actually go in the net instead of it going 3 yards over the bar or past the post or whatever. But that's a fantastic strike, goal of the round anyway for a long shot.
And then not long after, Rogic's involved again. He gets to the byline and puts a cross, an unbelievable cross, gets it actually over. Joe Lewis, who's a pretty tall keeper to be fair, and Elyounoussi comes in with the kind of Cobra. I've mentioned Cobra Kai a few times. He comes in with the Cobra Kai crane kick, or is that Miyagi-Do, and smashes it right in the roof of the net. That's a brilliant finish as well. But if you watch El Yunusi's movement, he starts on the sort of left-hand side, but you see him running round the defence and comes in at the back post. So the Aberdeen defence have absolutely zero clue that he's even there.
Constantine's all over the place with him. He really is. But you've got to give it. It is an absolutely pinpoint ball that it's just enough over Lewis to make it look even better, because he's trying to get his fingertips to it, and he's not even tall enough to get it. And it's a great ball again. 2 assists for Rogic. What more can you ask for?
Yeah, and it was. At that point, that's where I felt, this game's done. Aberdeen are not coming back from 2 down. They just didn't look as if they were going to be able to break us. Beaton had the slippers on, apart from one instant where he made a mistake. But Aberdeen probably should have done a bit better. But I thought defensively, I thought Duffy was a lot better. He kind of was more no nonsense than trying to be, Beckenbauer almost. Because that's not his game. And I think, the jury is definitely out on Duffy and what he could bring to this team. But I think he's one of these players. I think if you just play to his strengths, or he's got to play to his strengths and allow the ball playing guys run about him to do what they're good at, I think he'll be fine. I think when you're giving the ball to Duffy and you're asking him to make 15, 60 yard crossfield passes, that ain't his game. He's used to being playing in a team who generally get 30, 40% possession a game, maybe having to defend, up to 20 chances in a game, last ditch defending, high balls into the box, to then come to a team who are, they've got 60, 70% possession, and they're on the ascendancy, and you're the player with the time on the ball. I just don't think he's used to that kind of game, and it's going to get a bit of use to even with Ireland. I think it's probably more similar to the way Brighton play than the way Celtic play, that's for sure. So, I think it's going to take him a wee bit of time. But
it's one of his better games. That was easily seen. But the thing with Aberdeen, and I've got a friend who's a big Aberdeen fan, and he was watching the game, and I was saying to him, he says he's getting sick of how passive Aberdeen seemed to be at Hampden against Celtic. Yet, looking at last week, the week before, you'd think, well, that wasn't the case. It's just he says he's sick of McInnes and how passive they have become under him. Under that, it did seem like there was no way that Aberdeen would come back from 2-0 down. It just felt, for once, quite a comfortable game already in the first half.
Yeah, well, I think, you can label that at McInnes, but Celtic they had a £5 million keeper on the bench. They brought on a Yeti, who was a £5 million striker. They brought on Griffiths, who's been a top striker in Scotland for years. We had Ncham come off the bench, who's another sort of £4.5 million player. He just doesn't have the players to compete. All he can do is be compact, be aggressive, play for fouls, play for get Lewis Ferguson, who seems to be the only player that manages to cause a foul while winning a foul at the same time.
That's a great talent, that.
That's a brilliant talent. I think it's unfair. I think he's the kind of manager that will now and again get a result against Celtic, but when it comes to the really big important games, I just don't think his players have got the mentality or the ability to get the job done. I suppose that's what I'm saying. I don't think McInnes is a bad manager, because you only have to look at Aberdeen's record for 10, 15 years prior to him coming in, and they were a mid to bottom of the league side. He's had them top 4 for pretty much his whole tenure. So, I think he's a good manager against the rest of the clubs. I think he beats the teams that he should be beating, but he very rarely
himself as best in the rest.
Aye. To be fair, and I think the one thing that he's got wrong is the amount of players that they've not sold where they could have made money, and allowed them to leave for free. They've never really got the grips of the kind of Moneyball type stuff, So he's always constantly having to replenish that team, and I think he keeps players for too long when he should be making more money out of them. But Anyway, we're not here, so I suppose talk about Aberdeen. But again, it was they had a lot of possession in the second half, but never really created much. Probably their best chance came when Beaton made the mistake. But other than that, it was pretty comfortable. Second half, I thought Laxalt once again is just a bundle of energy, but he's not just a bundle of energy. He's a really, really classy player.
I did think it was one of his more quieter games, but he didn't really have to do much at the same time, certainly in the second half, I felt. But as you say, he always just looks ready to go, no matter what time of the game is. I think it was like the 80-minute mark, he was still running up and down the wing as much as he could.
We've got a few players now, and I'll mention Ayeti as well. I thought Ayeti's performance away at Lille was outstanding. I thought he was absolutely brilliant the way he held the ball up and stuff like that. I thought he'd get roughed up a wee bit with Aberdeen, and there was one right at quite close to the end where it looked like he took a punch or an elbow in the face, and that doesn't seem to have came to anything, to be fair. But we now seem to have players that you generally see play against Celtic in Europe. They just seem to have this ability to glide across the park, whereas Scottish players, when they're running, looks like they're really trying hard to run and keep up. Whereas
run away for the polis.
If you watch the way El Yunusi moves when he's at full flow, and you watch Laxalt and obviously we've got Edward as well and Rogic, see when they're at full flow, they just look really classy, high quality players.
It's just totally different styles. That's all it is, isn't it?
Aye. So we'll move into some questions. So, and all in all, you could easily say that it's been a very good week.
We'll echo that. Very good week, and good to keep this remarkable domestic cup run going.
Yeah. Well, mentioned that cup run. Two things I posted, or one thing I posted on the same tweet today, that Celtic's cup run, unbeaten cup run domestically, started on the 10th of August in 2016 with a 5-0 victory over Motherwell. I think Scott Sinclair scored in that game. It was his first home game.
And Gold scored that game as well. I think it was 5-0.
Oh. But we haven't lost a cup game since then. And the two things I mentioned that have lasted less time than that cup run, and that was World War One lasted less time. I think World War One lasted somewhere in the region of 1,560 days, whereas Celtic's cup run has lasted over 1,600 days. And also Donald Trump's first term as president has also lasted less time than Celtic's domestic dominance. So somebody responded to it by saying, since my boy at what's that say? Cathal Keo 67 has went to John Paul Academy, Celtic haven't lost in the cup. First league loss was S2, now in S5. Few of the young team from the Tony Mowbray CSC share this also. Hashtag lucky boys, hashtag Celtic da. So
it is quite a remarkable run, and I for one hope we can finish it off with, hopefully continue would be the best word, against Hearts.
Yeah,
and it would be quite something. No matter what league you're in, that is still a remarkable achievement, I think.
Yeah. I mean, you can't ask for a better chance. I know it's Hearts, and in real terms, they are a Premiership side, but they're a Premiership club currently playing in the Championship. They've got a couple of decent guys up front with Naismith and Boyce. But you've got to fancy Celtic big time for this. It'd be an absolute travesty if they don't get over the line with that.
I'd like to think we could win it. Certainly, if we play like we played on Sunday against them, then I would think we'd be heavy favourites for it.
Yeah. So I put a tweet just asking for some discussion points or questions from the listeners, and then we'll finish up. So first question comes in from Christopher Gillespie at Christopher1G89. He's wrote, is Diego Laxalt the number one priority signing next season?
Well, I think...
Have you seen the rumour?
Is this the rumour that he's available for 4.5 million?
If that is true, and I don't know if it's true. If that's true, that is the ultimate no-brainer. And I know we're only 4 games in, but anybody's been
ahead of ourselves too much. But yeah,
if anybody's been paying attention to Italian football, or South American international football, they'll know that this guy is an absolute steal if he's available for 4.5 million. Now, somebody said to me, I can't see it. Why would they want to? But my response to them is, well, when I mentioned his name 2 years ago, people were saying, why the fuck would they join Celtic, instead of Milan, or why would they leave Milan to come to Celtic? Well, here he is. He's here. He's made the effort to come. Why not ask the question? I think if you can get it done in January, I think you just get it done, or at least, But I suppose the guy's got to see if he fancies it out here. Like I said earlier, he's over here. He's probably staying in a hotel or a flat that maybe the club have helped him get. I don't think his family's out here. His wife and kids, they'll be probably back in Milan. So I think if he can get settled and he plays well, usually you can tell if a player's settled by how well he plays. And I think if he can keep this momentum going that he seems to have got going, he broke that record for tackles won and interceptions won in the Europa League against Lille, which is no mean. I think Hugh Keevins apparently said on Sunday, I never heard it, but somebody said it on Twitter that Hugh Keevins had said that Laxalt looks like a player that he doesn't want to defend. And I'm like, what fucking game have you been watching? That's all he does is win defensive duels.
The interceptions were just great. I mean, for a time, if you watch that clip, I think it was like 1 minute 20 seconds.
Yeah.
It just shows that it's as if he was letting nothing past him whatsoever, and it was great to watch. It just thinks, well, it just makes me think that we've got a really good player. And that's a player that's only played not even 5 games yet. I think at that time, at that point of the time, and he came in my opinion, he was absolute man of the match, without a shadow of a doubt, and he was absolutely fantastic. And I think you can actually hear, if you're listening to the audio, every 2 minutes all you're hearing is, well done Diego, and it's Ray Brown just congrats him every 2 minutes because he's pulling Celtic out a hole, or stopping an interception, or intercepting a pass and stopping an attack from being generated.
But I think...
Oh, you've got to do it.
If he's available at that price, even if it's 7 or 8, just still way to look at it. But obviously the club is going to be in a wee bit of a pickle financially, I think. But, I think we'll see quite a lot of players go at the end of this season, and I think it'll be a complete rebuild. And if some of that money is spent on replacing, and bringing back Diego Laxalt for 2 or 3 years, he's the kind of player that you would expect to see play for a Marcelo Bielsa team. If you know what I mean. If you've seen the way Leeds play, and I know they get pumped last night, but the way they play, it's that high energy, playing high up the park, just ultimate intensity, just non-stop. Yeah, he's just get that kind of... He's just get that kind of way about him. So it's a definite yes for me. If it's... and
I think it'd be a yes for most people, and I'll certainly agree with that. Definitely. If it's 4.5, that's an absolute bargain.
Yeah.
I think... Was it not someone else signed for Atletico Madrid today? I think, or was it Milan or something? Somebody signed for, was it Kondogbia for 11 million or something?
No. I think at the end of this COVID and at the end of this season, I think there will be a lot of bargains to be had, because I think there's a lot of clubs, in a bit of a pickle. The club that I'm managing currently on Football Manager 20, in real terms, AS Roma are... they're in an absolute financial basket case at the minute, just with the whole no Champions League money, no big player sales. I think their player wages to turnover something like 105%. It's absolute nuts. So there's going to be a lot of fire sale clubs out there next season. And I think if we can pick up guys like Diego Laxalt, at half price or even a third of what they probably would go and at peak times, I think you've got to jump all over players like that, because I think he's a class act, and I think he's got the potential to be even better than the left back that we let go, didn't he? And I don't mean Johnny Hayes. Well, Bolingoli for that matter.
That will remain to be seen. But I'm hopeful given what he's seen so far. So let's hope that
we'll temper our expectations. Next question comes from David McDonnell at David MC in a 1948329. No idea. That's nearly a phone number in there at the back. He's wrote, Sturgeon stabbing us in the back again. So I'm guessing he's talking about the fact that two Rangers players were attendees at a private function or party, and get caught. You've got to ask yourself, what the fuck is through your head? Did they not see what happened to Ball and Golly? Did they not see what happened to the Aberdeen 8?
It must have been some party. That's all I'm saying.
A party or two.
To make them risk everything. Now, I've listened to the phone-ins, and there's how a lot of them were saying this was like Jordan Jones' last chance, but it's not necessarily Edmondson's last chance. But this, I just don't see what the big point is, because eventually, one way or another, it's going to bite you in the arse, whether that be that you're suspended or whether that be that you cause a breakout of more COVID cases, and that is exactly what I think we're wanting to avoid right now.
Well, I think up to now, I think Rangers are the only team that has not had a COVID incident or case, which, call me a conspiracy theorist and all that, but and it just so happens that the two players that get caught are the two players that are not in the team, are not regular starters, Aye. As Sturgeon stabbing us, as she's stabbing us in the back, I think she's got bigger problems, to be honest, right now.
And she's worried about who goes into level 4, but
Yeah.
we'll
I was going to move on to the next question. Jerry Mackay at Jerry67, he's wrote, "What's going on with academy players? Many have left recently. I think Dembele was on the bench in Lille, but what is going on?" We've lost a few players to Germany, as far as I'm aware. Dembele is not getting any game time, and there's rumours that he wants to go. I don't know if that's true or not. Welsh looks a steady centre back, but nothing spectacular in my opinion. I think the boy Robertson and Henderson? I don't know if they're out on loan or whatever. I just think the 10 in a row thing has just totally stopped any notion of youngsters getting an opportunity. I think you need to be absolutely exceptional to even get close to this side. Because where do they play? And who drops out?
Who did they disperse, I think as well as, we've just said there that obviously there's going to be a lot of changes. You're going to see a lot of, players in the club. Maybe next year's their chance, and maybe that's where we're going to see the fruitions of it. I'm not saying that they'll be able to just walk in straight in that team, it'll be great, but you might see them barely getting the odd chance of the odd 20 minutes or whatever here and there, but not at the moment. There's too much pressure on the club as a whole, and it has been engulfed with this whole magical number that we want. So for us to think that we're just going to put academy players, with respect, who aren't that great, I mean, you just have to look at Welsh, who wasn't, who was certainly, not hung out to dry, is not the word I'm looking for, but he was all over the place against AC Milan. So, I mean,
he wasn't ready for that stage, I think, is he was thrown into a team that wasn't playing well, into a formation that didn't suit the players in the park, and I think he got caught out. And I wouldn't write him off, but I think he's the kind of player that you could bring in against Hamilton, or a team that we're going to be really battering at home, Ross County type teams. I don't think he's ready for the Rangers games or the Aberdeen games away and stuff like that. I think he's got time on his side, but I definitely, there is a dearth of talent and quality coming through the youth ranks, that's for sure. And any that are there definitely aren't getting a chance, because the first 11's so strong at the minute, and who, like you say, who drops out.
But then I think that they'll be told this surely, and I'd be surprised if they weren't. They're not daft, these boys. If they had any ounce of, not common sense, but they'll know that they've got better players ahead of them.
I don't have an issue with it. I think Celtic should always aim to try and promote one player into the first team, or at least onto the bench per season. I think you're really struggling after that. I don't think many clubs, go into a new season with 3 or 4 players coming through the youth ranks. I just, the Barcelona players that came through at the time, that's a very few and far between. The Busquets, Iniesta, Xavi, Messi all coming through roughly at the same time. That just, and then you go back further with the Man United guys, the class of 92. I mean, how often does that happen? That's once in a generation stuff.
If you look at it now, like the La Masia is like the apparently there's a lot of troubles going on there now. They're struggling to find the next, Messi or Busquets or.
Well, that's because all the other clubs in Europe have got better at picking these boys up for a really young age, So, so speaking of picking players up from different areas, Michael B89 Michael, he's wrote, do you think after the good start Laxalt has had that Celtic will venture more into the South American market? I know Celtic Underground have been going on about this for a long time, mainly because Mark Cooper, who I think he's involved in scouting of some, I could be totally wrong, so Mark, I'm sorry if you're listening to this and I've quoted you wrong, but I know you're involved in football at some sort of level in Argentina. I think he's been going on about players and going on about, players that he knows that hold dual nationalities, so the whole getting past the
work permit.
Work permit stuff is a bit easier, because a lot of the guys in Argentina and Uruguay apparently hold a mix of either a dual passport, dual nationalities with Spain or Italy, because I think a lot of their parents sort of emigrated from those two countries, Italy, Uruguay and Argentina, especially. I think in some parts of Buenos Aires, I think the language is a kind of mix of Spanish and Italian. So I don't think the work permit thing would be an issue. I just think Celtic have been stung in the past and they've just never really looked at that market. I mean, I've been quoting players for years that were available for an absolute snippet and then went on. I mean, the players I've been watching the Argentina Primera pretty much since 2008, 2009 time, and I was quoting guys like Enzo Perez, who was available for less than $5 million, I think it was. It was quoted in Argentine media. He went to Benfica for, I think he ended up like £3.5 million. Ended up going to Valencia for something like 25-30 million. Played in the World Cup final in 2014. He's now back in Argentina. He's in his 30s now. So there was a player. I remember seeing Eric Lamela when he was 19. I think he was available for £7 million at the time. Who's now obviously eventually went to Tottenham for £33 million via Roma.
He was at Roma. I kind of noticed him more, but I think it's truth be told that Lamela's kind of not really hit the heights that they had hoped for. I think.
No, I don't think he has. I don't think he's hit the heights that they expected him to. There's a guy, obviously Leandro Paredes, was available for £3.5 million. Went, I think he bounced about a couple of Italian clubs before he started to make his mark at Roma. There's been a number of players. There's a player I seen score last night in the MLS, who's on loan at LA Galaxy from Boca Juniors, Christian Pavon. I tweeted about him in 2017. He's a winger, quite similar to El Yunusi, right-footed, plays on the left, really fast, really cultured, really good player. Played at the 2018 World Cup for Argentina. He was available for £8 or £9 million. I think he's probably still available for around about that figure because he's gone back to Boca Juniors. So, I mean, there's a shitload of players that we should be scouting that market. We should be picking up these guys and basically saying, listen, come to Celtic, you play in Europe, you'll be playing, like I said, recently, you'll be playing next door to the biggest transfer market in the world. You'll be on British TV every second weekend at least, come here, and put whatever incentives you need to sort of get them in the door, whether it's a percentage of sell-ons and all that type of stuff. So I think we should be venturing into that market. Not too much. I wouldn't go the full Wolves and kit my team out, with a load of
Portuguese.
Well, they're Portuguese, but I wouldn't kit my team out with a full team of Argentinians or Uruguayans, because you'd be playing fucking with 7 or 8 men every week. They're all mental. So I totally agree with what Michael's asking. I think it's something. It's definitely a region that we should be picking up a player per season. I think, with a view to moving them on within a year, 18 months. Yeah, because they're not coming to Scotland for 2 or 3 years. That's for sure.
No, I mean, I think if they were that good, they'll not be here for the 2 or 3 years. Definitely not. I think they'll be playing at Dingwall once, and then that'll be it.
I think these players, very few of these players come straight from South America straight into, the Premier League in England, for instance. I think they've always got to go that roundabout way. There, Tagliafico, it was actually the boys for the Argentina CSC who were tweeting a few years ago. He was available for €4 million, and he went to Ajax, from Independiente, and then now he's been quoted as potentially going to Chelsea for £30-40 million. These guys are available. They're available at a cut price. These leagues aren't the richest leagues. They work on sell-ons and all that type of stuff. So there's opportunities there. I think so anyway.
Yeah, that's what I've been surprised about with the South American leagues. I thought there was a wee bit more money floating about there in normal times. That's
the Brazilian league. I mean, Flamengo they've got roughly a turnover when they reached the Libertadores final, when they beat River Plate. Their turnover was something like £180 million versus River, which was about £60 million.
So it's basically a country then that's the difference. Then basically, so it's a bit like us in the EPL.
Basically, I think the economy in Brazil is bigger than Argentina. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, there's like 4 or 5 times the population as well. But I definitely think it's a market we should be. And I mean, I'm going to be having the Argentine boys on for a podcast soon, the Argentina CSE. So listen out for that. So we'll probably get into more discussions about that and the links between Scottish football and Argentine football, because there is a lot more than people realise. Next question, Timothy Leary at Sharko67. He wrote, do you think Neil to settle on a formation at all this season, or will it be a case of horses for courses?
I think we've now found something that's going to suit us for the now, based on what we're seeing. Because I think with the 4-2-3-1, with it playing the lone striker, and with Rogic being available and Elyounoussi playing well, I think we've got to go with this to now. And surely Lennon sees that as well, that a 4-2-3-1 is the way forward for the first game.
I think it's definitely the way to start. But he's finished the last 2 games with a 3-5-2. So I think there's a case for both. If we've to get ahead, I think you've got to start with the 4-2-3-1 or the 4-3-3, whatever way you see it. But if there's a point where you want to sort of get an extra centre back in and tuck the fullbacks in and try and kill the game, then going back to a 3-5-2 I think helps, because I don't think we gave up a hell of a lot of chances with a 3-5-2. We just weren't creating that much. That was the problem. Even in the Rangers game, as much as we were terrible, Rangers only really had a goal for a set piece, the cross that led to a sort of deflection and and a bit of stramash. Other than that, we didn't really give up many chances in a 3-5-2. So I can see a case for both, but I definitely would start with the sort of 4-3-2, 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3, whatever.
It's got to be 4 at the back anyway, and something that allows Rogic to play in that number 10 role and Elyounoussi to drift off, and it's got to be something that allows the players that are banging for him to keep maintaining that level of performance.
Play the formation to win, and then when you're in a winning position, you're capable of. Sorry, I just get distracted there. Salah has just made it 3-0 for Liverpool away to Atalanta. He's just ran pretty much the length of the goal. It was a corner kick for Atalanta, and it's ended up in the net at the other end. Sorry, I should have been concentrating there. Next question, Arthur McBride at Arthur McBride, nice and simple. Is TRFC leading us on sports science, e.g. injury reduction, monitoring and tactics? I don't know. I mean, we'd 3 players basically get COVID after they left Celtic, to go on international duty. So I don't think you can blame Celtic for that. I think James Forrest got injured in a game and now he's got an ankle injury and he's going to need surgery on.
Yeah, it's a stress fracture or something like that. Right. So he needs surgery. He'll be out for weeks. So
I think Rangers have been working this formation since Gerrard came in, and I think they play it really well. I don't think they create a hell of a lot of chances, but they definitely don't give up that. I mean, not only are they not giving up goals at the minute, they're not giving up chances, and that's a really sort of winning combination that they've got going. I still don't think they're the greatest of teams, but they've definitely got a way of playing, and tactically they seem to have it bang on. They're creating enough to win games and not giving up any chances. So are they leading us on any of that stuff? I don't know. I think what we say is let's see at the end of the season.
I don't think they've ever really changed from the formation, to be honest. It's always been the 4-3-3, rigid for the years that Gerrard has been in charge.
Yeah.
But they're not going to get, we shouldn't be looking at them. We should just be concentrating on what we do, and all we can do is just win the matches. And for the now, given that they are ahead, so let's just concentrate on that and go forward from there.
Next question comes in from R. Stevenson. It's a bit of tongue-in-cheek here, I think. At Regan Stevenson, he's wrote, who has more of a clue what they're doing, Nicola Sturgeon or Neil Lennon? The laughing face. Yeah. I'd say Neil Lennon, to be honest. I think Sturgeon's all over the shop at the minute.
Well, we could be here all night with that one, I think. But I think both are doing their best. If that's going to be the easiest way to get out of that question.
Yeah.
I mean, Lennon, I think that this week has certainly died down any of the, Lennon out or 10 in.
Killed the noise.
So I think we'll see how these next two domestic games go. I think against Motherwell and Hibs will be very interesting. If we pick up maximum points from them, then I will be very happy, to say the least. And hopefully maybe a couple of drop points along the way from our friends across the city.
Yeah. So expect some grief on that one, R. Stevenson. Paulie M at Paul Michael Mork. He wrote, he's misspelled Celtic here. Celtic players in Scotland. Does anyone care or anybody care? Personally, I'd love for them to make a tournament. Do you know what? If the players want to play for their country, I really don't have a problem with it. Personally, I don't think this tournament should be going on just now. I don't think. I think Euro 2020 should have been just binned, but UEFA were never going to do that. So, I really don't have an issue with it at all. To be honest, it's down to the players. If the players passionately want to play for their country, then what can you do? I just have an issue, that players go away, play for their country, get injured, and then there's no sort of repercussions,
Or they get, in these times now, that they get COVID.
Yeah.
I think, I do agree with you that any competitions, certainly international, should have been cancelled. I kind of get the argument for maybe the domestic competitions, the European competitions within club level. But I think there's too much travelling when it's the Nations League and other things. I think it's just.
Well, when teams are travelling for Europa and Champions League, they're travelling as the same bubble that they train with every day. So that's the difference. That's
a little bit different. But this whole, we need to maintain Euro 2020. It seems now that they're going away from 12 nations and it's only going to be one, and it's potentially it's going to be Russia hosting it.
That's because Russia. Do you know why it's Russia? Because Russia are allowing fans in, basically.
And they had 18,000 tonight.
I did a lot of fans at that locomotive game tonight. So, next question, Kevin Sutherland at Big Stoff 46. Best central defensive partnership at Celtic at the moment. Julian and Beaton for me. Maybe replace Beaton for Duffy against the Cosgrove stroke Dykes, etc. Opposition centre forwards. For me, I still think the best centre back pairing is Julian and Ajer.
Yeah, I would agree there. I mean, Beaton is Mr. Dependable. Is when he's called upon to do something, he will try his best to help the team for the cause. But yeah, I mean, it's got to be Julian and Ajer. It's the best defensive pairing. It has to be.
That's what I think as well.
Yeah.
I've got a tweet here for Tom Sheehed at Tom Sheehed feed. Why did Lennon revert to 3-5-2 on Sunday? With the subs, at 70 minutes. Like I said, I think it was a case of, we were 2-0 up. The game was won. There was no need to really sort of push forward. I think the midfield was starting to tire a wee bit, and I think it was just a case of, keep their centre backs busy with two strikers, two quick strikers on the break, flood the midfield and just see the game out. And I think that's pretty much what we said not too long ago, that I think there's a place for 3-5-2, but just not as a start to try and win the game. I think it's a formation to close out a game. I don't think it's a formation to start the game.
No, I mean, I think as well, it was just to get players some game time and allow some rest. So if it means that we change to 3-5-2 while being clearly ahead in the game, then I'm all for it. There's not mean the slightest. It's not. I think people are just looking far too much into it. Going, oh, he changed it, and no, I'm happy with it. Totally.
Last question before we finish up. It comes from Peter in brackets Ped at Ped_Cassidy. Our fans who keep saying they want Ferguson to replace Bruni, the guy is shit. He's nothing more than a hatchet man. I don't know if that's him asking a question or just putting his point across.
I take it we're talking about
Lewis Ferguson. Yeah. I think I'll let you go first on this one.
I've never really considered it. So
I've seen the comments, and I've seen. I think even Paul John Dykes has suggested it on his podcast.
Well, I must have been sleeping at the wheel with that one. I mean, I'm not really seeing too much about that.
I'll tell you who's sleeping at the wheel. Atalanta. They're getting pumped 5-0 off Liverpool.
That's a shock. That is an absolute shock.
I actually seen a bookies Twitter page suggest, and it was like a 4-team accumulator, and they had Atalanta down as, this is a shock for me, to be honest. Atalanta have been outstanding in the last couple of years, but Liverpool are just absolutely destroying them. Sorry, back to Ped's question. Lewis Ferguson, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm from what I've seen of Lewis Ferguson, I just think he's just a player who likes to get involved, and likes to be more involved with regards to just leaving his mark on someone. I don't think there's much skill or there's much of a player there. That's just my opinion.
I think we've got a tendency.
I think he's Celtic quality. If you're asking.
I think Sports Scene or Sports Sound have got a tendency to bum up shite Aberdeen players. I don't think he's a bad player, but I don't think he's a good player, a great player. I don't think he's good enough for us. I think he's the type of player that will probably end up at Rangers eventually. He's definitely got what I mean when I was in the Ball Boys for our run of podcasts, we used to call it a big hun tackle. He's definitely get that in his game, I think.
I think he likes to cause it against Celtic, shall we say. I think he likes to wind anybody who gets in his sight up.
I mean, he's bad enough. He's playing for Aberdeen with his dad being Derek Ferguson and obviously Barry being his uncle. But to join Celtic, I can't see it. I don't think he's good enough, and I don't understand this notion that we have to replace Brown with a like for like type player. I wouldn't even class Ferguson as a like for like anyway. But I think people have this perception of Brown being this tough tackler, boss in the midfield kind of thing. I don't necessarily want to see a replacement for Brown. I'd rather we moved away from that type of player, because most teams in Europe, don't have a Brown type player. Generally their holding player is the guy who's probably the most talented and can just totally dictate play from a deep position. Yeah,
I mean, we've spoken about that on the podcast before, and I just feel that when Brown's time's up, then we will deal with it accordingly with filling some sort of position, whether that be a sort of Brown player or maybe more a sort of McGregor player. It just depends on how we see it, but it doesn't need to be like for like, because if you replace like for like, you're just going to expect the exact same, and you're not going to get that with Ferguson, I don't think.
Well, we'll end this with a wee happy birthday and a hopefully get well soon to Diego Maradona. He turned 60 on Friday, but tonight it's been reported that he's in hospital for a scan. He's got a bleed in the brain and requires emergency surgery. So that's pretty bad news for Diego Maradona. I've lost count how many Diego Maradona retro shirts I've got. He's a hero to me. So I get well soon.
It was one of the first documentaries I watched when the UK went into lockdown. I still think it's one of the best. It was on Channel 4, and it just showed you basically his time at Napoli. And I tell you, if you haven't watched it, anybody, it's a great insight to just how great a player he was. He basically took Napoli from bottom of the league to UEFA Cup winners and Scudetto winners within a couple of years. And he is some player, and the way that he could control a ball was just absolutely fantastic. And I think if he was just a wee bit less mental, he could have went to maybe better heights.
I think that's the appeal of the guy, is how nuts he is. Have you ever seen the Barcelona Athletic Bilbao at the end of the cup final? Have you ever seen that footage?
He just dives into someone.
He scissor kicks somebody right in the jaw. And it's just an absolute war. They're all, killing each other. It's mental, but get well soon to him. So on that note, we'll end this week. It's been pretty positive, I think. I think we've been fair on criticism of some players and bigged up players who have totally deserved it. I think moving forward, hopefully we'll get score predictions. I've managed to. I'm 2 for 2 on score predictions in the Europa League. So. I've went 3-1 Milan, and I went 2 each, just purely being based on being absolutely realistic as opposed to being a Celtic da. So I'm going to go Celtic 2, Sparta Prague 0. So what's your suggestion?
Well, I'm going to go for 1-0.
1-0.
I don't think it'll be as easy as people maybe potentially making out. So I'll take 1-0.
Okay. Well, on that note, we'll catch you again next week, and hopefully there'll be another couple of good results in the bag with Motherwell, I think, in the weekend away, isn't it?
Yep, Motherwell and Sunday, yep.
Okay, well, on that note, I'll catch you again soon. Hail.
See you later, bye-bye.
Cheers.
And they gave us James McRory and Paul McStay. They gave us Johnston, Tully, Murdoch, Gold and Hay. And most of the football greats have passed through Parkhead's gates. But to play football the Glasgow Celtic way.